James works as the leads the product and visualization design team at Blue Dot in setting the design strategy and architecting user-centric solutions. Blue Dot is an internationally recognized social enterprise working with organizations throughout the world to address public health threats, especially infectious disease. Blue Dot's mission is to integrate expertise in medicine, health, and the creative visual arts with big data analytics to help decision makers around the world protect themselves from the consequences of global infectious diseases. His presentation is entitled Design for Health in a Connected World.
So I know we're running a little bit behind on time, but this being like a health and design talk, does everyone want to get up for like 10 seconds just to stretch there? So I think I'm breaking the chain of British accent speakers. Apologize for that. Today I'm going to be bringing a challenge, design challenge, a health challenge, and not necessarily a solution, but something for you guys to think about. We'll talk a little bit about our own approach. This is probably going to be one of the more morbid.
Sorry, we can't hear you back here.
Oh, is this a little bit better? Okay, all right, this may be a little bit more morbid than some of the other talks. All right, we're going to start with smallpox. So this is ancient Egyptian Pharaoh, one of the first recorded cases, as we know, for smallpox. All right, smallpox, as some of you may know, has killed many, many, many millions of people around the world up until last century. Last century, actually, over 500 million people died of smallpox. But it's something that we thankfully don't have to think about very much anymore because it's been eradicated thanks to very aggressive vaccination programs in the last couple centuries, actually. It is the first and only infectious disease to have ever been eradicated from the planet. And hopefully polio in our lifetimes will be next. It's coming up pretty soon. Don't know how many of you know about the Great Flu, the H1N1 pandemic that was on the heels of World War I. Sometimes called the Spanish flu, but it wasn't actually Spanish flu, it was worldwide. It just happened that Spain was the only place that didn't censor the media. And so people thought it was more in Spain than other places. But this flu pandemic lasted a couple years. 500 million people were infected, and somewhere between 50 and 100 million people died of this. This was particularly special because, unlike most influenza outbreaks and most influenza, this affected young, healthy adults as well, not just the elderly or young children. West Nile virus, moving on to more recent times. So West Nile virus has actually been around for quite some time in Africa, but in 1999, it was the first time that it made its way rather, to the US, to New York City actually. And since then, it's been creeping its way all across North America. You get it from mosquitoes, but the actual source of West Nile virus is from infected birds, right? So birds are the ones that infect the mosquito, and the mosquitoes are the ones that infect us. The most recent epidemic of West Nile was just a few years ago in 2012 in the US, where over 5,000 people were infected and several hundred dead from that. You guys may remember the Anthrax bioterrorist attacks right on the heels of 9/11. Anthrax spores were sent to media and Democratic senators across the US. 17 were infected, 5 dead. I bring this one up in particular because infectious diseases are not always coming from natural sources, but artificial human threats as well. Right? I'm sure many of you in the room may remember SARS. Right? So SARS in 2002 started off in China, and made its way over to Canada. And Toronto in particular was quite hit, as well as Vancouver, but Toronto in particular, from cases that we think originated in Hong Kong. Over 8,000 people were infected from SARS globally, and over 700 died from it. In Canada alone, 44 people passed away from SARS. In case you think that number seems small, it may, 44 in the large scheme of things compared to, say, half a billion from smallpox. Also consider that the economic impact of SARS to Canada alone was calculated to be $1.5 billion. MERS, a similar type of respiratory virus to SARS, originated from the Middle East, hence its name, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. So far, over 1,000 infected, and about half of those dead from those infections. More recently, as some of you may know, in 2015, just a couple years ago, it made its way over to South Korea from a known connection to travel connection to the Middle East. And in South Korea, they had a small outbreak of MERS. I'm sure all of you will remember Ebola. It's all over the news for a couple of years. Spread through direct contact with other people, typically through sweat, saliva, tears, so on and so forth. It's the biggest known outbreak of Ebola. Over 28,000 were infected and over 11,000 dead. The economic impact, measured economic impact of Ebola to the West Africa region of Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Liberia was estimated to be over $1.6 billion. And finally, Zika. Millions around in the world infected. And this one doesn't have much of a death count to the people infected. Right? The impact of Zika, 80% of the people who are infected don't even experience symptoms, only 20% do. And of that 20%, they tend to be very, very mild symptoms. The impact is really to the children of, or pregnant women who give birth to children while having been infected with Zika. And over 2,000 cases so far have been recorded for microcephaly attributed to Zika virus. Unlike West Nile virus, I think it's important to also note that in the case of Zika, you do get it also from mosquitoes, but whereas West Nile virus, it's the bird that's infecting the mosquito, which is infecting the human. In the case of Zika, it's humans who are infecting the mosquitoes. And that means that humans who travel throughout the world with Zika infections can go out throughout the world and infect other mosquitoes around the world, which we'll talk about in a bit. So this is going to continue to matter because population growth, especially urban growth, is continuing to grow, and many infectious diseases spread more easily with crowding. Because industrialization is continuing, and industrialization, along with industrialization, the changes in agriculture are also happening. And agriculture is where we get a lot of the cases of antimicrobial resistant bacteria happening because of the antibiotics used there. Along with industrialization has been causing, as you know, a lot of climate change. That's changed the environmental suitability for many of the vectors of known diseases. So this in particular is the, what you see in the pale yellow is the current extent of mosquito Aedes aegypti. And with conservative climate models, scientists think that the red will be the new extent of Aedes aegypti within our lifetime. Aedes aegypti is pretty important because it's the mosquito that's responsible for spreading diseases such as dengue, chikungunya, yellow fever, and in particular, Zika virus. But most of all, maybe, is global mobility, right? So this is a figure of a 4-generation change in mobility. Dr. David Bradley, an epidemiologist, captured this. His great-great-grandfather, is that right? Great-great-grandfather in A only traveled an order of magnitude of, on the order of 10 kilometers. His great-grandfather on the order of 100 kilometers, his father on the order of 1,000 kilometers, and himself globally, right? So, as more people travel more, it makes it easier for people to be exposed to various diseases, as well as bring them back with them and then bring them to other places. It's a really connected world that we live in today. I am going to skip a couple of examples in the interest of time. But feel free to come to ask me about these examples, especially the example on cholera and Haiti. But what is design's role to play in all of this? And I think it really is about finding solutions that are either locally optimized, globally optimized, or simultaneously both locally and globally optimal. Right? Our design methods today tend to be more about local optimization. We think about user-centered design. Well, our methodologies around user research, interviews, usability testing, behavioral psychology, etc. And this is good. This is all in well, but it has led to, in some cases, designs like the feature on Netflix that auto cues the next episode, right? Leading to things like Netflix binging, or feature like on Instagram for the like, right? Which kind of leads to the dopamine addiction that a lot of us have to that. Or things like filter bubbles on use, because that's what people want to take a look and listen to. But there is global optimization that we should also be simultaneously thinking about, right? Optimizing for higher order ideals in design, such as social justice or environmental responsibility, and in our case, health and healthcare and the well-being of people around the world. So, I just want to, in the last 2 minutes, just want to talk a little bit about what we at Blue Dot have done to approach this problem. We look at it from the point of view of preventing outbreaks to reacting to existing outbreaks and recovering from outbreaks that have happened. And we approach this from a top-down and bottom-up way. So top-down, we work with a lot of governments around the world, public health agencies in particular, and the WHO, to help understand and give situational awareness to what's happening around the world. Right? So this figure, for instance, explains or shows how Ebola-affected countries are connected throughout the world. But we also try to help react to the existing outbreaks. So this next series of figures shows this one, the road network in West Africa where Ebola was, where people live there, the areas that are high in population density but don't have good road access networks, so those are the areas in red, and which areas in the region have good access to Ebola treatment centers versus not. So areas in red indicate it would take, some distance away from the Ebola treatment centers. And this can lead us to a culmination of all those insights combined to what areas have a lot of population but don't have that access to Ebola treatment centers. We also look at the environmental suitability of various vectors. This one is for Aedes aegypti. and where travelers are traveling to that could possibly pick up diseases or leave off diseases for the mosquitoes to get infected from. You'll remember that Aedes aegypti is responsible for Zika, and you'll find that in red, South Florida and South Texas are among those zones. And South Florida and South Texas did have locally transmitted Zika for several months last year. This is just for the world. One area that we're currently looking at in Africa is Angola, which we knew would have Zika suitability, particularly right now because it's their summertime. And just last week, they started reporting their first cases of locally transmitted Zika, probably from Brazil. So all this data, we try to capture, codify, understand what, where, when, how, why, about infectious diseases. We want to provide this kind of information not just to governments, but to people. So our bottom-up approach, providing this to people to help them understand their risks of infectious diseases, personalized to their medical conditions and history and vaccination history, whether or not they're pregnant, their age, so on and so forth. And we eventually want to provide this off to healthcare providers as well. So this is a big challenge for us. It's always a challenge trying to design solutions to situations that you can't easily predict, and to try to design solutions that are both locally optimal and globally optimal. That's essentially it. I just wanted to put in a little. We are hiring, so in case you're interested or looking for work or know for somebody who's looking for work, do chat with me afterward. That's it.